Y'all ready for this?
What is up, everyone, and welcome on in to Arizona State University on the downtown campus. Coming at you live from the Bill Austin radio studio. It is Clutch Talk time. Once again, I'm your host, Devon Henry. It is every single thing that you need to know in the sports world. If you're an ASU fan, Arizona sports fan, or you just like sports in general, this is your local student sports show on your local student station, Blaze Radio. Once again, I'm Devon Henry. So much to get into here today. So glad to have you along. Of course, the NFL playoffs. It's going to conference championship time. Is this kind of a nightmare situation, though, for the NFL? Meanwhile, the Phoenix Suns have dropped 5 out of their last 6 games, but is there a bright spot? I'll tell you exactly what that is. And we're going to the ice rink as well. ASU hockey heads to Gila River Arena this weekend to take on Quinnipiac. Guys, so much to talk about, but before we get into any of that whatsoever, it is time for your ASU sports headline. Sadly, the headline this week is actually going to be about an ASU panic button, maybe? ASU men's hoop, thankfully, just got off of a win against Oregon State this weekend, 77-75. Well, at the end of the day, you don't want to beat a non-ranked team by only 2 points. It was a win. ASU moves to 2-3 in Pac-12 play. Shannon Evans II, 22 points. Cody Justice, 14 points. Evans' points all coming in the second half. At one point in this game against Oregon State, ASU trailed by 13. That's about halfway through the second half when OSU opened up the half on a 15-3 run. Here's where the issue comes to me in this game. OSU outscored ASU 10 points in the paint in the first half. Essentially, what won this game for the Sun Devils was that they had 8 straight made field goals to win the game. That's what saved them in this entire matchup for ASU, only taking a 2-point win. But before I go any further about what kind of worried me from this game, let's talk about what Shannon Evans had to say post-game.
I mean, their guards kind of went at us today. Their whole team was making shots. They had a lot of energy. So in the locker room, coach was just saying maximize our energy as well, and we'll make shots, and that's what we did.
So here's my concern. I just mentioned to you the whole outscored by 10 points in the paint, ASU compared to OSU. Shannon Evans II right there just talked about the big post presence of Oregon State. The issue that I have with this, though, is that Arizona State is bigger and deeper than they were last year. So shouldn't that mean that they should be able to command the paint and the post a little bit more than they did in this Oregon State game, where they ended up trailing by 13 halfway through the second half, essentially 11 minutes to go, basically it was. But the big story that I think really came out of this was the then Pac-12 leading scorer Trey Holder fell awkwardly on his shooting shoulder in the first half. He ended the game only 1 for 9 from the field, only 4 points in the entire game. There's no word on his status as they take on Stanford tonight on the road. He did aggravate that shooting shoulder, the right shoulder, in the first half. He did play the rest of the game, but like I mentioned, only 1 for 9 from the field and only a total of 4 points. He is no longer the leading scorer in the Pac-12 after only scoring 4 against Oregon State. He's dropped to, I believe, third it is, just under 20 points a game now. But he has been so essential to this offense, and that's where Shannon Evans II and even Cody Justice stepped up in this Oregon State game to kind of pick up that play. But ASU now finds themselves 2-3 in conference play. If we go back and look at some of the bad games, some of these games that they have lost against Arizona and the tough ones against Kansas, and even the ones where they had those terrible first halves right before conference play started against Vanderbilt and Longwood, and even not a fantastic first half in that Kansas game, it looks like they're still going by last year's philosophy. Live by the 3, die by the 3. And in all 3 games that they have lost this year, they've really been dying by the 3 ball. Like I mentioned earlier, being outscored in the first half by 10 in the paint, that can't happen anymore. DeQuan Lake is a good post presence. Cody Justice is fairly tall. While I won't call him a post presence, he can definitely be a stretch 4, stretch 5 when he needs to be. ASU needs to find a way to make their presence better known inside the paint. That's how they're going to be able to win some of these strong Pac-12 games against these tough Pac-12 schools, is being able to dominate the paint. We already know that they can shoot the lights out. They've had bad three-point shooting games and come out and win against Vandy and against Kansas. And against Kansas State, they blew the lights out. The issue, though, is that you can't rely on the three ball game in and game out for a bunch of kids in their young 20s. That's what they're going to need to end up needing to find if they want to go into Pac-12 play deeper and deeper and deeper and figure out what is making them under 500 5 games through conference right now. I will give them this, though. To start off the year playing Arizona, the Oregon schools, Utah, that's not an easy feat to do. It's not, I mean, they probably had the toughest beginning to the year out of all the Pac-12 schools, so I'm not going to destroy them for that or anything, but nonetheless, you can't be going by this win by 3, die by the 3, because we saw what it did last year, and it was just not very good in general at the end when you saw their final record. But since they're bigger and since they're deeper and Mickey Mitchell's came in, then you keep on getting more players as transfer eligibility goes off. This team can go much deeper on the bench than they did last year, even with the loss of some seniors that they had. And with DeQuan Lake and just the fact that they are dangerous from 3, they should be able to use that inside game more. It's been widely reported upon that they're getting rid of the jump shots. It's either 3 ball or down low. And in these last 5 games in the Pac-12, they've been too heavily relying on shooting around the perimeter. And that's where a team that will regularly score 90 points ends up only scoring 77 against an Oregon State team. Here's Shannon Evans II once again post-game against Oregon State about what needs to get better with this team.
I feel like defensively, we got to do a better job inside. Not necessarily our big men, but guards getting down there helping rebound. That's what I try to do today, is try to get in and rebound. I know Oregon killed us with offensive rebound and things like that. So the biggest thing that we want to take care of is the offensive rebounding and defensive boards, and I feel like that's what we did tonight.
So a now 14-3 ASU will face Stanford tonight. 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So for any of you guys who feel like you need to do homework tonight, you can throw that aside, and at 9 p.m. our time, you'll be able to check out that ASU game. You can be sure to check it out on the Blaze Radio Mixler account. Braden Bell and Rob Warner are going to be on the call for that one. As usual with those two, it's going to be a very fun game as ASU visits Stanford. Now let's move things, staking on the hardwood, but we're going to move things over to the women's game now. ASU Women's Hoops, they were on a 6-game win streak. They have clawed their way back into the top 25, heading to the state of Oregon, where they would then fall to Oregon and Oregon State, 2 ranked teams. On paper, this women's club looks mid-pack when you look at the stats, when you look at the points per game, when you look at the rebounding game, when you look at the overall defensive end, and as well as turnovers as well. But nonetheless, this team has clawed their way back into the top 25. I think losses against a top 10 Oregon and a loss against a top 20 Oregon State is going to keep them in the top 25 nonetheless. But it does raise more concerns when it comes to women's hoops. Yeah, you lost to basically the 2 best teams in the Pac-12, but it doesn't get much easier from here because we all know how tough the Pac-12 is. ASU could be the number 3 team in the Pac-12. Heck, I mean, if they can figure out how to take down Oregon State, they could be in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game for all we know. And the fact that they are still relevant, top 25, remember, this is a team who in the round of 32 last year in March almost took down South Carolina. They lost all those seniors. Sabrina Haynes goes down with just a ridiculous knee injury, yet they're still fighting in the NCAA. They are still a top 25 school. They are still going to be a powerhouse outside of the state of Oregon, essentially, in the Pac-12 for the NCAA. And they are now 13-5 on the season. And thankfully enough for them, they are actually going to be coming home this weekend. They're going to be taking on Utah on Friday, and then on Sunday they're going to be taking on Colorado. So teams that aren't quite as dangerous as Oregon and Oregon State, but nonetheless, this team is still somehow, some way fighting and making themselves a name in the NCAA. I asked you guys on @ClutchTalkASU who is going to finish with a better record at the end of the year. Men's hoops or women's hoops, your final results. 43% of you guys saying men's hoops is going to end up taking the cake. 36% of you guys, though, overnight, this one changed a lot. 36% of you guys saying that it will be women's hoops having the better record. That's less than a 10% difference. So apparently some faith going on there with the women's Sun Devils. 21% of you guys saying that it is going to end up being a tie. Right now, women's hoops 13-5 on the season. A better Pac-12 record than the boys at 4-2. So now we're going to move things away from the hardwood, and we're going to move to the ice now. Sun Devil ice hockey coming off of a split series against UMass Lowell Riverhawks. It was 4-0 on Friday, and then it was 4-0 on Saturday as well. Joey DeCord, the goalie, coming off of his first career shutout on Saturday against the Riverhawks. Impressive nonetheless. Here's the deal. They're 7-13-4 on the season. Okay. 7-13-4 on the season. I think that with one of the top recruiting classes in ice hockey, that's a little bit lower expectations than I think that they were looking forward to, as I think that they're going to end with a worse record this year in their second full NCAA season than they did last year. But 2018, flip the switch. New year, new me, guys. They are 3-1 since New Year's Day. They are your Ice Vegas champions, the first ever college championship tournament, if you will, going on in the Vegas Golden Knights now arena, taking down two Michigan schools. And as we know, there's a lot more ice in Michigan than there is in Arizona. And they actually scored a combined 10 goals in only 2 games in that tournament. And then, of course, they shut out the Riverhawks on Saturday as well. So 3-1 so far in 2018. They are going to be heading for another test against a struggling NCAA powerhouse in Quinnipiac this weekend. On Friday, they are going to be in Tempe, and that's going to be at Oceanside Ice Arena. And then they're going to be moving to Glendale on Saturday as they take on Quinnipiac. They're still looking for their first win in the Coyotes Arena over at Gila River Arena. I'll be on the call along with Justin Gaither on that one at Glendale, or in Glendale at Gila River Arena. But guys, here's the deal. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what you guys are thinking about NCAA ice hockey here in Arizona. I want to know what you guys are thinking about the men's and women's hoops. Be sure to be following me at Clutch Talk ASU and be participating in our polls. Coming up next, we are talking Arizona Pro Sports. Phoenix Suns. Hey guys, there's a highlight. Don't worry, it's okay to watch the Phoenix Suns. Don't be so embarrassed. And also, of course, we're going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals coaching search. Yeah, we're not going to be getting a name very soon. Be sure to stick around here to listen to Clutch Talk on Blaze Radio.
You're rising up, they're falling down. They should have stopped, but I do good to be alive right about now.
You're listening to Clutch Talk with Devon Henry. Welcome back, everyone, to Clutch Talk. I'm your host, Devon Henry, and we are hopping into Arizona Pro Sports. And no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about how terrible the Coyote season has been. I'm going to leave Weston DeWitt on his new show with Harley Year Out talk about all of that mumbo jumbo. Instead, we're going to talk about a different losing team in the state of Arizona Pro Sports. It is the Phoenix Suns, coming off of a loss against the Portland Trail Blazers last night, 118-111. It was a fourth quarter comeback because, quite frankly, when I turned off the TV last night, the score was like 25-point deficit. So they came back. Devin Booker, 43 points on the night, 21 points in that fourth quarter comeback. Blazers, though, were just a little bit too much. 17 total three-pointers in this game. Damian Lillard is a good basketball player. Who knew? So now the Phoenix Suns have officially lost 5 of their last 6. Scoring is down this month by nearly 3 points per game. The Young Guns, though, are starting to find their groove. Devin Booker, 10th in the NBA right now. 10th in the NBA. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving. Yeah, it counts all of them. In points per game. 24.6 points per game for Devin Booker. He is a top 10 scorer in the NBA right now, guys. When this year started, he was a top 5. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's in there. All of them are in there. Isaiah Thomas, he hasn't had a lot of games, but nonetheless, they're all in there. And Devin Booker is right now top 10 in the entire league as this crazy youngster. How about TJ Warren? He is top 30 in points per game, though he's been injured the last few games. Josh Jackson, how about this? What everyone's calling a little bit of a bust, possibly, Josh Jackson. He hasn't necessarily been performing excellently, may I say. But nonetheless, in these last few games, Josh Jackson averaging 15.8 points per game, almost 6 boards a game. The Suns' average age is now under 25. While they're not the youngest team in the NBA, by far, quite frankly, there's actually quite a few who are a little bit younger. This is one of the youngest teams that the Suns have ever had in the history of their franchise. And this is one of the youngest teams in the NBA whatsoever. A lot of people had the Suns in the Western Conference sitting at 14th place overall. And right now they're sitting at 11th. Well, granted, they're still about 7 games outside of a playoff spot. And I mean, talking about the Suns in a playoff spot really isn't a conversation to be had right now. They're still 11th, and they're still ahead of 4 teams in the Western Conference. And they're still ahead of 2 or 3 more teams in the Eastern Conference. With all these poor numbers, the Phoenix Suns are still 11th. Jay Triano is somehow doing something right. I can't tell you exactly what he's doing right, but nonetheless, the Suns, while they aren't necessarily great basketball, they're not terrible basketball. I was joking around with my dad, what was it? It was a few days ago. It might have been over the weekend as ESPN was covering or was actually broadcasting the Suns versus Rockets game. And so on SportsCenter, they're going, oh yeah, and be sure to tune in tonight to NBA, whatever day it was. Blah, blah, blah. Not Saturday prime time, Friday night, whatever it was. Be sure to tune in. The Houston Rockets take on the Phoenix Suns. Rockets with Chris Paul is amazing. James Harden is amazing. This team is amazing. The Rockets trying to catch up to the Golden State Warriors. Blah, 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 blah. Rockets. And Devin Booker is a good basketball player. Like, they were trying to sell it, guys. They really were. They're like, oh, the Suns, they are a fun team to watch. They are a fun team to watch. Devin Booker and someone else on that team. I can't tell you who, but Devin Booker is on that team. I mean, while, yeah, the Suns aren't the best team in the world, nonetheless, they are, like I said, 11th in the Western Conference right now. Not a good record, but nonetheless, if the Suns can keep this young core together, TJ Warren, Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, I still like Tyler Ulis. Dragan Bender is starting to hit from beyond the arc. I think that this team can really do some damage here in the next couple of years. So I asked you guys on Twitter at ClutchTalkASU. I also retweet them on my own page at Devon Henry 77. You can check all those out. Which Sun youngster has the most upside for Phoenix's future? I asked you guys, D. Book, Josh Jackson, TJ Warren, or even Marquise Chris, the youngster. 95% of you guys, 20 votes, 95% of you guys going with Devin Booker, the other 5%, which I'm sure is only 1 vote, going with TJ Warren, who's right now injured, but nonetheless has been contributing to this team on a very high level. Nonetheless, though, the Phoenix Suns fans definitely have faith in Devin Booker. Well, guys, let's move on over to the turf, or should I say the front office of a turf team, the Arizona Cardinals, in their head coaching search after the retirement of Bruce Arians. In the offseason, they also are losing Carson Palmer to retirement, and I'm not going to get into that right now and how much I did like Carson Palmer, and it was not his fault that there was bad games, dang it. Nonetheless, though, ESPN has reported that there's a total of 9 candidates for the Cardinals' head coaching position, and all of those are going to be non-already head coaches. But, guys, don't be expecting an announcement, really anytime soon. Here's the issue. 5 of their 9 candidates, remember there's only 4 teams left in the playoffs right now, 5 of their 9 candidates are still in the playoffs. They will be playing this weekend and have already interviewed once. Due to rules and regulations that the NFL holds when it comes to hiring coaches, the Cardinals cannot interview any of those 5 coaches until they are knocked out of the playoffs and their seasons are over. I'm not going to name off all of them for you. There's a couple of them that people are saying are probably going to be going for the Lions job or other related head coaching positions, as the Cardinals are still one of 5 teams still searching for a coach. But beyond the coach, there's still so many things that the Cardinals front office are going to need to fix on the Arizona Cardinals, with quarterback Carson Palmer retiring, What are they going to do there? Are they going to try to draft another quarterback? Are they going to try to get Drew Stanton to step up a little bit more? He had a fantastic final game against the Seahawks, playing on I believe he had a partially torn ACL for most of the end of the year, but nonetheless wasn't all that impressive. Blaine Gabbert, they threw him out there for a little bit. He wasn't all that great. How about the offensive line, who was hitting Drew Stanton more than I think the opposing defensive lines were? Carson Palmer and the other Arizona Cardinal quarterbacks were hit. I think it was 31st most hit quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, that's going to be an issue for your O-line. And then, of course, there's the secondary and the D-line. And okay, so basically the whole team needs to get fixed. But right now they're just looking at a head coaching spot. Nonetheless, though, guys, yeah. So basically, don't be expecting any sort of announcement on the Arizona Cardinals head coaching position too. We'll dig a little bit more deeper into that one as the season goes along. Guys, final segment coming on up here on Clutch Talk. We are talking about the National Football League. Of course, AFC and NFC championship games are coming up this weekend. Why the NFL is going to be a little bit worried. Clutch Talk. Devon Henry. We'll be back in just a moment.
Rising up, the falling down.
You're listening to Clutch Talk with Devon Henry.
Welcome back, everyone, to Clutch Talk with Devon Henry. Remember, if you ever miss an episode, you can go onto mixcloud.com/Devon Henry and check out all episodes of Clutch Talk, blazing around the track. And coming up next, of course, is the Car Hop, the best of the 1950s and 60s, rock and roll. 50s and 60s live here on Blaze Radio. But to close out here on Clutch Talk, we are talking about the NFL, AFC, NFC, a lot of acronyms. Playoffs coming up. The conference championships are only a few days away. Let's take a moment to remember how we got to this point. Of course, in the AFC, the number 1 seeded New England Patriots are going to be taking on the number 3 Jacksonville Jaguars. This is going to be a Brady versus Bortles game. In case you guys were living under a rock this weekend, Jacksonville upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, these guys just went on a scoring bonanza, for crying out loud. They scored nearly 90 points combined with these two teams, which was absolutely insane, and the Jaguars end up taking the upset. Now, for the NFC is going to be the Minnesota Vikings, number 2, taking on and heading to Philadelphia for the Eagles. This is going to be Keenum versus Foles. Nick Foles threw for 246 yards against the Falcons. That's the most pass yards in a game for him since week 1 of the 2015 season. Going back to the AFC now, we're going to do a quick preview. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into these previews next week, same time, same place, Wednesday, BlazeRadioOnline.com, just to let you know. Jacksonville has only beat the Patriots once in franchise history. That was a playoff game. It was the 1999 wild card. But these teams have once before met in the AFC Championship game. Pats took the win 20-6. That was on January 12th of 1997. Meanwhile, for the Vikings, all time, these teams are actually tied when you combine playoffs and regular season. It's 13-13 apiece. The Vikings, though, are 0-3 in the playoffs against the Eagles all time. So, I was teasing that the NFL might be a little bit worried, scared, if you will. Not that this is going to be terrible games, because all of these teams, including the Jaguars, because they did beat the Steelers fair and square, NFL is going to have a hard time marketing this, guys. They really are. Let's look at our quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Blake Bortles, Case Keenum, and Nick Foles. Now, I asked my brother, name a quarterback in the conference championship games this weekend. Tom Brady. Okay. Blake Bortles. And I was like, how did you know that? And he was like, it's on the news. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But nonetheless, we have a backup quarterback in Philadelphia. We have kind of a backup quarterback with the Vikings since Teddy Bridgewater went down over a year ago now. You have Blake Bortles, who has been compared to a high school quarterback in Jacksonville and possibly the most hated quarterback in the NFL, Tom Brady in New England. So let's look at our markets here. We have New England. New England is a pretty big market up there. They can basically control all of the Northeast. Cold Minnesota. Well, that's not a bad market. It's not the biggest market in the world. Philadelphia, though, hey, that is a very big market for any sports team. And then Jacksonville. Here's the deal with Jacksonville, guys. I'm going to ask you this. I want you to answer honestly. You hardcore football guys, maybe people who live in the state that Jacksonville is in. What state is the city of Jacksonville in? Think about that for a second. It might take you a minute to figure out the answer of where Jacksonville is. Florida. There you go, guys. But nonetheless, these aren't the biggest markets in the history of the NFL. New England, of course, has gotten bigger over the years with the success of the New England Patriots. Minnesota isn't a bad one. Of course, Philadelphia, I mean, they're just kind of not the greatest franchise over the last few years, especially with the whole Chip Kelly fiasco where they'd be on Fox and ESPN all the time talking about how bad Chip Kelly is. But how do you market, let's say, a Philadelphia Eagles versus Jacksonville Jaguars game for the Super Bowl in Minnesota? How do you market Blake Bortles versus Nick Foles? If you are not a hardcore football fan, if you are maybe even just a somewhat passionate football fan, I might say those names and nothing comes to your head. You can't even image what number they are. You can't even figure out what team they're on quickly off the top of your head. Blake Bortles and Nick Foles. Here is the biggest issue. Is that out of these four quarterbacks, your four big names, I mean, those are essentially some of the biggest names on the teams. I mean, Leonard Fournette on the Jaguars, who actually just got an fender bender the other day. He's okay. Don't worry, Jacksonville fans. He'll be okay. Tom Brady, and of course, the Patriots are a big name everywhere, but what other big names are on this team? When you just look at the quarterbacks in general, who is not in this conference championship game? There's no Drew Brees. There's no Big Ben. No Matt Ryan. No Eli Manning. No Cam Newton. You couldn't get the young guns in there. There's no Dak Prescott and the young gun amazing Dallas Cowboys, no matter how much our amazing sports director who just nominated for an IBS award, Weston DeWitt, does not like the Cowboys. Jared Goff. You couldn't get that young gun in here. But I think that one of the biggest things that the NFL is going to be looking back on is the fact that they couldn't keep Aaron Rodgers healthy. You couldn't keep the young gun Carson Wentz healthy. Russell Wilson was having a hard time being healthy. I mean, hey, Cam Newton got hit really hard in that last playoff game, and I mean, how are you not keeping these big name quarterbacks healthy? And now you are stuck. I mean, like I mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater. People like Teddy Bridgewater. Then he got ridiculously injured, and now all of a sudden, what I didn't think was going to happen, especially after the low production last year, is that they were going to be brought by Case Keenum into the conference championship game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that these teams don't deserve to be in here. Jacksonville has one of the best offensive lines and defensive lines in the NFL. That's not a question. That's a statement. They have one of the best O&D lines in the NFL. And don't think that Tom Coughlin, who basically stole away 2 Super Bowls from Tom Brady, is not going to go down to Doug Marrone and tell him some secrets about how to possibly beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship. If you don't think that the Vikings or the Eagles didn't deserve to be in this game after fantastic seasons and fighting their butts off in this playoff, you're wrong. But what I'm trying to get out here is how hard it is for the NFL to not have big names like Aaron Rodgers and Big Ben and Matt Ryan like they did last year. Last year's 4 quarterbacks were Rodgers, Roethlisberger, Brady, and Ryan. You know all 4 of those names. Those 4 names have history in the NFL. Those names, for the most part, have Super Bowl rings to go along with them. Meanwhile, you have 2 franchises who have never won a ring and 3 QBs who have never won a ring. Compared to last year, that's not an improvement. The best case scenario for the National Football League this weekend is the Patriots winning and the Vikings winning. Now, I'm not saying that they're the favorites, even though they actually are. I'm not saying that they're the most popular. I'm not saying that they deserve it the most. What I'm saying here is that the NFL, to market Super Bowl 51 or LII, whatever you want to call it, to market this game, the best would be the Patriots and the Vikings. While yes, the Vikings aren't this team that's going to go down in history as one of the greatest of all times, and so that team was the first team to ever play a Super Bowl in their own arena, which could possibly happen. And then the Patriots, the most hated team in the NFL. If you have those two teams, that's what you're going to be able to market the most for national television, because this thing's going to sell out regardless because it's a Super Bowl. But then you also jack up the ticket price. If you have the most hated team in the NFL, because people like to watch the most hated team in the NFL, and the team where the Super Bowl is being hosted, that is the best case scenario for the NFL. No, not everyone's favorite bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Not the big guy, the old guy, the fan favorite Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. The most hated team and the home team. That's what it's come down to for the NFL for their best case scenario in this Super Bowl. Well, guys, that's enough for my rant, and that's all the time we have here today for Clutch Talk. I want to thank you guys all for coming on out here online and listening on in for episode number 1 of this brand new semester. We got plenty more episodes to come, and of course, we got plenty more sports to come up. Supercross is coming to Arizona in Glendale next week. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks. When February rolls around, of course, we're going to be talking about Super Bowl previews. We're going to talk about everything from Arizona high school basketball to the Winter Olympics. This is Clutch Talk. It is your local student sports show on your local student station, talking everything that you need to know in just 30 minutes. Guys, thanks again. I'm Devon Henry, and thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you again, same time, same place, next week. Remember, you can listen to all episodes of Clutch Talk on Mixcloud.com/Devon Henry. Of course, you're listening from the Bill Austin Radio Studio in downtown Phoenix. Coming up next, the best of the 1950s and 60s. It's the Car Hop. I'll see you guys then.